Hi, how you doing? So in this tutorial I'm going to walk you through how to create this Peaky Blinders inspired Lightroom preset. Okay, so I'm going to reset this and walk you through the process. So the first thing I want to do is just increase the color temperature because it's a little on the blue side. And the next thing I'm going to do is just increase the contrast. And then we want to pull the highlights down and bring the shadows up. So I'm going to bring the highlights down to around there and bring the shadows up to around this mark here, plus 20. That looks pretty good. Then what I want to do is just drop the whites and the black, just because I want to just suppress it ever so slightly. There we go. So we're just dulling them tones down ever so slightly. So then moving on, we want to add just a little bit of clarity into this, not too much. And the same with the dehaze. I'm going to actually push this up a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit higher to around plus 20. That looks good. And then to really give this a sort of grime look, so to speak, I'm going to bring the saturation right down to around there. And to counterbalance that, so we don't lose some of the color that's in there, I'm just going to push the vibrance up ever so slightly to around there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now we've done that, we've done the kind of the very basic treatment where we're just kind of dulling everything down. Now it's a case of adding some more contrast and then manipulating the color so we can then get it to look how we want. So the first thing I'm going to do on the tone curve is, as always, I'm just going to add 3 points here. So for the whites, greys and blacks, and I'm just going to come up to the top here and just pull these whites down ever so slightly. Not too much, but around there. And I'm going to bring these greys down just a smidgen too as well, actually to that first box that's there on that scale. And the same with the blacks here. I'm just going to pull them down ever so slightly. So it's about there. That looks pretty good. So we're just adding a little bit less contrast into that image. You can see what that's done here before and after. You can see it's just, again, it's just dulled everything down a little bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just manipulate the whole image with color. So I'll start with the hues first. So I just want to bring the oranges down ever so slightly, and I'm going to also do the same with the greens. I'm going to bring them right down to about minus 60, and also the blues as well. I'm going to bring them down to around 51, 52, around that mark. Looks pretty good. There, that works pretty well for this particular shot. So the next with the saturation is all about bringing most of this down, with the exception of the orange. So I'm going to bring the reds down. I'm going to just push that orange up a little bit because I want to keep some of the detail around here. Then with the yellows, the greens, the aquas, the blues, all of them, I'm just going to bring them right down to around this mark here. That looks pretty good. Same with the green and the aqua. So I'm just going to tweak these in a minute because, again, each individual picture requires a different process. So I'm just working out, okay, so this is a really good starting point. So then we can just tweak these until we're really happy. And I think what I did on the original was around the 80 mark, which again is still looking like the right setting. So it's always a good idea just to really take your time with these. Don't just throw these around to any old numbers that I shout out. Just have a look on your image and see what works, because a couple of points difference can really help and make the image look completely different. So that's looking pretty good on that saturation mark there. So let's come down to the luminance. So all I want to really do on this is just think about the main colors that are in here. So I want to keep this orange, because not just because of the woodwork, but because of the skin tones and things like that as well. So let's just push the orange up a little bit, so the luminance, the brightness of that, to about there. And then with these greens, I don't want this to have a green cast to it, so I just want to bring that down to minus 10. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So now we've done that, what I'm going to do is now color grade it. So we've manipulated the colors, and again, let's have a look at the before and after. You can see that so a lot of the color again has been stripped out. All the colors I didn't want that are in there, so they've all been stripped out. Now we need to color grade it by adding colors back in. So a minute ago I said I didn't want a green cast on that luminance there, just because I'm going to add that back in and give this a cinematic look. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the shadows. I'm going to tackle them first, and I'm going to just come down to the hue here, and I'm going to type in the hue that I want. So I want around 90. Again, play around with that, because you can get some really nice tones either side of that. 95 up to 100, and even down to 75 can work really well. And then I'm just going to type in a saturation of 10, so it's very, very subtle. Okay, and then moving on to the highlights, let's come to the highlights here, and with this, the hue I'm going to type in is 170, and a saturation a little bit higher, because it's the highlights. I want to add that aqua green hue into that, so I'm going to put that up to 20. And then what I'm going to do, just bring down the balance, so I'm going to bring that down to around -70, around that mark there. And you can see what that does. If we go the other way, that's going to give us more of the highlights. This is going to more biased towards the shadows, so we've still got that lovely aqua vibe going on, but it's just not as heavy. Okay, it just doesn't look as chalky. So moving on, then we just want to come into the noise reduction area here, so I'm just going to bring this up to around there. That looks pretty good. It doesn't need too much, it's just a little bit. Whenever you're doing work like this, you always need to just think about noise reduction, because you do introduce a little bit of noise when you're playing around with the colors. So that's going to help it, and we could just sharpen it a little bit as well. Let's just bring that up to around 10, and then just keep the detail at 50. And then the masking, and hold the option key down and just push that up, so that we just get the areas that are white are going to be sharpened. So it's just the detailed areas, that's all we need sharpening, just to make sure that our eye is brought to them. And that is it. That is how you do it. So if we look at the color grading before and after, you can see what that's done. You can actually see the warmth of the oranges and the yellows that are in there, and then just by adding that color grade, it's given us more of that cinematic look, which I think works really, really well. So if you look at the actual before and after, so you can see there what it's done, and yeah, it looks pretty good. So that's giving us this Peaky Blinders inspired Lightroom preset. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.